On tonight. Give a hand for former Justice Jimmy Ervin coming to the floor.
Not real good reasons, so I don't add you to this if possible. Thank y'all for being here with us this evening. After that, my dad used to talk about speakers putting on the rousements. I think you just heard the rousements. But it's always great to have a chance to be with you this evening. It's an honor for my family to be recognized by this party in this manner. I hope that we have tried to be of service to the citizens of this county, to the state, and to the nation. I'm confident we haven't always been right, but I think we've tried. And I think that's all that any of us can do. I also very much appreciate the fact that our state chair came up to see us this evening. She may not remember this, but I think we met on a Zoom call when Lucy Inman and I had to subject the state chair, the county chairs in rural counties to judicial campaigning, which is a pretty excruciating thing to have to listen to. And I remember being impressed with her energy at that time. I didn't know who she was. I had never heard of her. But I remember leaving that meeting thinking, this is somebody that I need to know something more about. And I didn't see her again until the day that I received this. Lucy and I tried to campaign together. And one of the very last things that I did in the 2022 election was to attend an African American caucus voter turnout rally in Roxborough late on a Sunday afternoon. And we walked in there, and they had a great crowd, and Anderson was kind enough to let us speak. And then we did what statewide candidates do, we spoke and ran off. But she gave me this hat on the way out the door. And this is Person County Democratic Party. And I kept it because that's one of the few mementos of that campaign that I really wanted to have. Because that was a great, great event. Was impressed by her drive and her energy then. I think all of you have seen why that's the case now. This party at the state level has problems. But I think the diagnosis that you've heard this evening is a solution for those problems. I spoke to the county party earlier this year and pointed out some of the turnout issues that we were having. And Anderson and I talked about this, and she understands what we need to do to turn things around. And I'm grateful that you took the time to come up and be with us this evening, and also to help honor my family. Bob and I have done these speeches so many times now that I'm probably running out of things to say. But I tried to think a little bit about what are the values that I hope that my family has stood for. And, you know, there could be a lot of them, but I've sort of identified four of them that I think are pertinent to the situation that we find ourselves in now. I think first of all, and probably most important, and I don't think this is going to come as any great shock when you realize that we're a bunch of lawyers and law enforcement officers, is the importance of the rule of law. Now, what does that mean? And Judge Gilbertson, incidentally, they forgot to say this was your birthday. Happy birthday. One of the great things about getting older is that you watch people who you worked with when you were younger succeed in life. Y'all don't know this, but she is an elected official in Los Angeles County, California. Imagine what it must be like to run for public office in Los Angeles. Got more stomach for it than I did. But the rule of law is a pretty abstract concept. Now, what does it mean? I mean, it means that we have rules that we've agreed upon as a society. Those are the rules that hold our society together. All of us are entitled to rely on their protections, and all of us are required to obey the law, no matter how politically powerful we may be, or whether that law gets in the way of something that we personally want to do. It's what keeps us from having our own way all the time. We can't have one set of expectations for ourselves and our friends and another set of expectations for everybody else. I've often wondered if the respect for the rule of law that I hope our family has exhibited comes from our Presbyterian heritage. Forgive me for that. Which stresses that all of us are imperfect, and that each of us, if given free rein, will do and abuse whatever power we have. We believe that no president, no governor, no Congress, and no legislative supermajority should have absolute power. When that happens, the rule of law is dead. Secondly, I think that we were all taught that each individual is important. Those of us in the family that we've honored this evening that weren't lawyers or law enforcement officers were educators. And my sister Margaret, who is also here, is continuing that tradition in the next generation. And one thing that lawyers and educators have in common is that we have to see people as individuals. Lawyers deal with the personal problems of individuals. Educators get to see perhaps the better side of it by seeing the potential that everybody has in the world around us. We get to see the fact that all of us have gifts, and that all of us have things that we can do that benefit society. And I think we've learned that we should listen to others, that we should learn from others, and that we should treat others as we want to be treated ourselves. At the risk of trespassing further into the Ervin male side of the discussion, Dad used to quote Micah chapter 6, verses 6 to 8, as sort of his mantra in life, which reminded us that the Lord required three things of us: to do justice, in the New Revised Standard Version translated as love kindness, and walk humbly with your God. It's important to care about others, to listen to them, to understand them, and it's more important to do that than it is to insist on having our own way. We also learned, and I see a number of folks around who have served on the school board, Alan and Bruce, I know you did, and I'm sure there's some others. I think all of us have been thoroughly convinced of the fact that education is critically important. My great-great-grandfather was a school teacher in South Carolina in the 19th century. My great-grandfather, Sam Ervin Sr., held one public office in his life, which was to be a member of the Board of Education of the Morganton City Schools that he helped to found. My grandmother was a teacher. My mother was a teacher. One of my sons has been a teacher, and Margaret has taught at the university level. My great-grandfather did something that was pretty remarkable for somebody who was born in 1855. He had 4 daughters who lived past 18, and all of them received a college education. That shows, I think, that education is a part of our family DNA. I am a proud product of the Burke County Public Schools. Everything that I have achieved in my life can be traced back to the teachers that I had when I was in the elementary schools, junior high schools as we call them then, high schools in Burke County. Education benefits everybody, everybody. Whether you have children or not, you are benefited by the fact that we have an educated population. Education is a fundamental societal obligation, and it is the only way to achieve long-term attitudinal change in our society. And lastly, and I know this will be as a great shock to those of you who know the Ervin family, we've always thought it was important to think for ourselves and to say what we thought. My grandfather used to torment my mother by bringing up public issues at the dinner table, waiting to see what she said, and then taking the opposing position. Mostly because he was trying to get people to think for themselves. She said that when he went to the Senate and was appointed to the committee to investigate Joe McCarthy, she was petrified because she couldn't stand Joe McCarthy, had argued with Granddad ad infinitum at the dinner table, and that Granddad had defended McCarthy. And she thought he was going to go up there and defend McCarthy in the Senate, that he was one of the ringleaders of the century. Dad brought cases home from court when we talked about him at the dinner table. I hate to think how many people we've sentenced over the course of several decades, about a 10-year period. They taught us that critical thought and intellectually honest discussions were essential to a democracy. That we should not blindly follow what some chosen, ordained leader says. And that we should speak up and say what needs to be said, even when it isn't popular to do so. And I think these attributes are particularly important now. You've heard some of this already, and I'm not going to go into any detail on it. I hope I'm not over my 20 minutes already. But Joe Biden and Roy Cooper and Josh Stein and other folks in this party have stood for the last decade, for the last half century, for a constructive approach to the problems of our society that attempts to make life better for everybody. And you can call things like that socialism all you want, but that's what we've done. Our friends on the other side appear to be intent upon renominating a presidential candidate. And this is where I think I'm now liberated from the Code of Judicial Conduct. Appear to be intent upon nominating a presidential candidate who insists upon blind obedience from his followers. Clearly believes that he shouldn't be subject to any restraint whatsoever, and will say anything and do anything that he thinks is in his best interest regardless of the public good. Our friends on the other side appear to be giving serious thought to nominating a candidate for governor who seems to know or care very little about the substance of the issues that are faced in this state, and who seems to be primarily interested in belittling and insulting those people that he disapproves of. And they clearly seek to retain in office a legislative supermajority that seems to be mostly interested in creating an educational system that's very similar to the one that failed in this country in the 19th century. To create a backward-looking social agenda that will do little or nothing to address the problems that we face in this state, and an economic agenda that they've had a decade and a half to implement, and that it has done nothing for the very people that they claim to want to be helping. I was raised differently than to do that kind of stuff. If I'd said some of the things that some of these folks said, I would have literally, I don't think I would have had my mouth washed out this so, but I don't think I would have liked what would have happened if I'd done it. I hope my family stands for something different than that. I hope this party stands for something different than that. And I hope that each of you will do everything that you can to persuade our fellow citizens that the time has come to reject the approach that people like the ones I've described follow. Again, thank you, Anderson, for coming up to be with us this evening. Thank all of you for coming. Thanks for the honor that you do to our family every year. We're more grateful to you for it than you can possibly know. Thank you.